The world's best and brightest in human genetics and genomics research convene once again, this time in Washington, D.C. for the 2023 ASHG annual meeting. Join the more than 8,000 scientists from around the globe to take part in learning all of the year's most significant new advances in the field. ASHG TV starts right now. Hello everyone, and welcome back to another full day at the 2023 ASHG annual meeting. I'm Matria Godfrey, and I'm here to bring you all the latest from this year's annual meeting. For this episode, we are looking to the future, and we are bringing you exclusive interviews with leaders in the field. We will do a deep dive into institutions at the forefront of genetics and genomics research, and we'll be highlighting some of the key topics being discussed at this year's meeting. There is so much for us to get to, but first we get started with highlighting you, our members. We took to the floor to hear what excites you the most about the future of genetics and genomics.
The world is moving towards personal and precision medicine, and genomics, genetics has a great role it plays. ASHG has all the normal things to help us understand the gene more so that we can now use this to understand health better. So using genes to go back to what now understanding health and improve quality of life.
Well, I've really been in genetics since 1968, in human genetics, and the changes are vast. But if I had to mention one thing, it is the probability, not possibility, probability that we're actually going to be able to treat many disorders that we never would have conceived of that being possible 50 years ago.
Everybody's actually different, but then everybody's genetics different, and then you have to use different medication for certain types of a group of people. And you can actually very precisely give out medication to fit for those people. That's what I think that it's most exciting me. You can find the exact medication.
Being able to share is tremendous. So having access to harmonized information from many labs all over the place that really provide insight into what genomes are, how they evolve, how they are personal, how they are tissue specific, because that will ultimately help us deliver better tests to more patients worldwide.
Now that we have these advancements in science, the question of how to use it is a hotly contested one. Here to discuss this morning is Rosario Isasi. Thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
Let's get started, and can you just share your insights on what are some of the ethical, legal, and social implications of genetic research and how it should be properly used?
So first, let's start by saying, what is this field of study? What is ELSE? We hear all the time, and we sometimes don't know how to define what those implications are. The main focus is in how science and technology impact society. And our particular focus is how genomics and genetic technologies could have and should have a beneficial effects at the population level. So what are those ethical implications are enormous. What are the social implications? It varies depending on the areas we choose to focus on.
So as you mentioned, you're an expert in genetics, law, and policy. What do you think are some of the legal and regulatory challenges that geneticists face that still need to be addressed?
So the first one is, and I think it's the focus of the ELSE field of study, in being prospective. So for a foresight approach, identify, evaluate, and address actual potential or current issues that might arise that will have these societal consequences. From a legal and an ethical point of view, the perennial question is how ethics and policy can evolve at the same pace as scientific developments and at the same pace that societal debate and engagement takes place.
So how can we take, I guess, all of this genetic information that we are gathering at a very rapid pace and use that to maybe address some health disparities or help with health equity?
First, the way it's collected, stored, distributed, and used has to reflect the needs, the priorities, the concerns of the broad community. We normally call stakeholders, I mean patients, research participants, policymakers, scientists, etc. It has to be in a way that reflects in an equal manner in the same way the benefits, but also mitigates the harm. So we always say maximize utility, minimize harm.
So given that concern, as we look to the future, how can we hopefully ensure that the collection of all of this genetic data is being used for the betterment of society?
Yes, I think we need to safeguard it there. We have to have safeguards or tools at different levels, at the policy levels, that first ensures equitable participation in genomic research. Two is understanding and being responsible in how we portray the results of research. And third is engage the public. If we don't understand as a scientific society or the scientific stakeholders these notions and don't understand that we have to invite everyone to the table, we cannot combat mistrust and misinformation.
Do you think that we combat that through more stringent regulation?
Regulation is part of it,
Okay.
but more than regulation, I like to think of a whole policy system that is not only the law or what top-down approach, what the government will say, but also best practice. As a scientific society, ASHG is doing a great job in promote responsible communication of science, right? And trying to mitigate, if not prevent, misuse. But again, including all voices, including the public.
This is certainly a fascinating side to genetic research, and we really appreciate your expertise on it this morning. Thank you. What do we mean when we talk about celebrating genetic diversity? We had a chance to learn from the ASHG President-elect, Bruce Gelb, all about what this means and why we need to ensure everyone is included in genetic research.
I would say diversity is on two parts of our equation. One part is figuring out how we make sure the science that we're undertaking represents the entire family of the world, basically. There are many ancestries, and to the extent that environment is also important to think about. Obviously, people live in very different places, and all that is important, and we know our science is better and it's richer if we account for all that, and that's before you get to the equity part of the equation as well. The goal clearly is that all this hard work and resources that have gotten us to this point can be applied to everyone, so the benefits can accrue to everyone. The other part is who's actually doing the research. For all too long, we know there hasn't been the diversity. And first of all, that's not equitable. Everybody should have that opportunity. There's talent everywhere. But also, it turns out that when you have diverse groups thinking about science, you actually do better science. And that's a commitment we have, and we certainly need to live up to it. For the ASHG, celebrating diversity is making sure that we are committed to the values that we hold around diversity, namely that the people who are invited to do human genomic research and take it up can do so with few or no barriers, that they feel welcome when they arrive and are part of our society, that we engage wherever they are so that they feel comfortable participating in the research that we're doing, and so that their values and their needs are met through the work that we're doing.
Sitting down now in studio is Dr. Joseph Shen, the incoming chair for the Public Education and Awareness Committee. Thanks for your time today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
You know, more and more people are hearing about genetics and genomics. Why is it so important to have those that are in the field discussing public engagement, and what does it do for the field overall?
So I would like to think that all of us would just love to talk about the passion that we have for genetics. This is why we're in the field. And so not just with those who we're working with, or even our family and friends, but it's an open invitation, I think. Push, encouragement that we would want to go out and talk to even more people.
You're right, there's an important recruitment angle to
Sure,
public engagement. So to that point, what are some of the ongoing efforts that the ASHG are taking part in when it comes to public engagement?
There are actually several committees that we all have overlapping roles. And so, for example, the Government and Public Advocacy Committee, the Digital Program Committee, but I'll just focus on my last few years of involvement in this PEAK committee. First I want to highlight is because it's a very strong component of everything that we're doing is the DNA Day essay contest. It's centered around DNA Day, which happens in April. We're very happy with the direction it's going. It's been averaging more than 1,000 entries the last multiple years, especially not just only in the United States, but internationally, there's been great growth with that. More broadly than that, in alignment with what's going on at ASHG, the diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, that's a strong component and a big push for what ASHG as a whole is trying to do. And we're definitely a part of that too with the PEAK committee, where we made connections with the National Hispanic Medical Association, NAACP, when we highlighted different breakthroughs and discoveries over the years, over the decades.
So clearly, ASHG is doing a lot when it comes to public engagement and awareness. What about if somebody's watching right now that's thinking, okay, I want to be a part of that, I'd like to get involved, how can they do so?
It's formal efforts that we're being involved in that we've been discussing. But I think even at a more individual grassroots level, just to even talk to people, even just personal connections, just to get the word out there about how exciting genetics is and make sure that they recognize that you're involved in genetics and you're passionate about it. And I think it can even start with something as simple as that.
Everyone could be a walking ambassador for
Exactly,
ASHG.
most definitely.
All right. Well, Dr. Chen, thank you so much for your time today. Appreciate all of your efforts and appreciate your time.
Great. Thank you, Audrey.
Now, let's take a moment to dive deep into the organizations and universities leading in the field. The Genetic Counseling Professional Science Master's Degree Program at the University of Connecticut is the first and only genetic counseling program in Connecticut and the first in a public institution in all of New England. The competency-based and engaging online program is designed to be responsive to the dynamic environment of clinical genetics. Let's take a closer look.
Genetic counseling program at the Institute for Systems Genomics at UConn is in its first inaugural year. This is our first matriculating class, so we're very excited about that.
We have an online modality for learning, and that is in itself unique among genetic counseling programs. They are traditionally face-to-face. We think that having an online modality increases access to learners who wouldn't otherwise be able to access a graduate program in genetic counseling.
This program is really exciting, and I think it has a really bright future because it's bringing in genomic technologies and training genetic counselors in emerging practices that are going to be a really big part of personalized medicine in the future for the entire country. I think it's also offering opportunities for students in new modalities of training that really do broaden the scope of participation in this particular profession.
For a generation, the University of Minnesota has been committed to patients and science, and today it's a pioneering institution in the field of gene therapy.
For genetics, this is the time, and this is the place where therapy for genetic diseases can finally begin to take place.
When treatments are approved by the FDA is happy if you can arrest the progression of the disease. That's enough for the FDA, but that's not enough for us. We want to see if we can take it farther.
We are in the forefront and right smack dab in the middle of new advancements in therapies, such as gene therapies.
We're seeing patients with metachromatic leukodystrophy, which is a rare neurologic disorder. And we're the only institution in the country that's been able to treat these patients with gene therapy. Their enzyme levels tend to be higher than we can achieve with transplant, and we look forward to seeing how well they do in the future.
Bonnie has a rare disease, but Hurler syndrome is not rare here at the University of Minnesota. Everyone is familiar with it. We feel like we're in the best place possible for Bonnie's care.
Finding therapeutics for rare diseases is a long and challenging road filled with many pitfalls, but there is hope. Working to shorten the road to therapeutics, the Rare Disease Translational Center at the Jackson Laboratory is driving this research pipeline to provide support to patients.
I think the biggest challenge for rare disease is finding as a parent when you're newly diagnosed that there isn't a treatment that will work, that you often have to start from scratch.
Because they are so rare, not as lot is known about the diseases or the genes that cause them.
So at the Jackson Lab, what we end up doing is taking the mutations that we know are in patients and creating an avatar that allows us to study the disease itself. But it also gives us a therapeutic platform. The treatments for rare diseases, the most powerful ones, I believe, are going to be the genetic treatments that we have.
We have been working on our gene therapy project for the longest time with JAX. It's a tremendously exciting time.
Right now, we're fortunate enough that our daughter's in a clinical trial. They're so present in our community. The people and the scientists at Jackson Laboratory and CAT come to our conferences, come to our events, hug our kids. So we are just eternally grateful.
When it comes to a career in genetics and genomics, the options are endless. And here in studio with us this morning to discuss a little bit more is Andrew Marterstein, co-chair of the Career Development Committee. Pleasure to have you with us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Well, let's get to it. You know, what would you say are some of the challenges for maybe somebody trying to navigate a career in genetics?
Yeah, I think there's two key challenges. The first being there's so many exciting projects to do, so many different ways to take your research. What should I do? What should I focus on? And the second thing is navigating your career. Let's say you're a grad student or a postdoc. What else can I do besides research if that's not your route? So it's always challenging to think about both these questions. We're only one person, we can only do so many things. And so figuring out how to prioritize your time, prioritize what your values are in terms of your career is, I think, two of the key challenges that every early career member needs to think about.
You perfectly brought me to my next question, which is I think a lot of people just assume, okay, a career in genetics means I'm going to be a researcher, but that's not the case. There are other options out there.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, besides just taking your research beyond the academic route to industry, such as like a biotech or a startup or in pharma, you can also look into nonprofits, steering the direction of government and funding institutes, such as the NIH or sub-units of that, like the NHGRI, NCI. There's even think tank options as well. So there's a lot of different ways you can use your PhD beyond just research itself. I'll even mention one last one is advocacy. Thinking about advocacy in terms of fundraising for science or raising awareness for ethical issues in genetics and science in general. That's a great way to use your PhD too.
As I mentioned, you're co-chair of the Career Development Committee. How do you think that the ASHG does when it comes to helping these young professionals kind of navigate their career and maybe get a jump start?
What I love about ASHG is we have this annual meeting where here we have a couple of events that sort of help you develop soft skills, such as today we're having lunch about how to leverage confidence in your career. And I think that's key for anything that you want to do. But also throughout the year, we have year-round virtual programming through webinars, sort of learn about new types of positions and new types of areas of focus. And so that sort of cultivates skill building year-round, also awareness of lots of different paths.
You mentioned some of the great opportunities that are happening here at this meeting for some of those young professionals. What would be your biggest piece of advice for somebody maybe just starting out or somebody trying to figure out, what do I want to do with this career?
Talk to people. There are thousands and thousands of people in your field that are here that are not just people at your institution. So go out, meet people, talk to people, learn from others. This is the best opportunity to do it every single year.
Networking. It's all about networking.
It's all about networking. Yeah, that's why we're here. And go to the sessions too, learn about the great science. But talk to people.
Right. Awesome. All right, Andrew, thank you so much. Pleasure to have you with us today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me again.
As we wrap up an incredible week here in Washington, it's already time to start thinking ahead to next year. Dr. Beth Sullivan, the chair of the program committee for next year's ASHG annual meeting, is here in studio now with all the planning that's already underway, I would assume.
That's correct, Audrey. Yeah.
All right, so this has been a wonderful week, but it's already time to start thinking about where we're headed next. We're going to Denver.
We are.
What can attendees expect for next year?
Well, I think just like this year, the quality of the science, it will be very, very high. The program committee is going to be looking for the best, most creative, innovative science across all the areas of human genetics, from clinical to basic to translational. So we'll be looking for that. We encourage you to submit your best science for us so that we can choose you to be highlighted at next year's meeting in Denver.
Right, and what an honor to be selected.
Absolutely.
What are you personally most looking forward to about next year's meeting?
Yeah, so I think there are a lot of things that we're excited about. Again, like I said, we're looking for exciting science. We're looking for the application of these new genomic methods in either clinical medicine, understanding basic genetics research. We're also thinking a lot about gene therapy and clinical trials. So we're really looking for the best science in that area, and that's what I'm personally looking forward to. Artificial intelligence is now part of everything that we do. So it's not just Google, it's not just Instagram, but it's now being used to analyze genetic data sets, genomic data sets. So we're really looking forward to seeing the application of AI in human genetics. I think that's going to be on the forefront of what we're looking for. And I think another area that the program committee is really committed to expanding is the ethical, legal, social implications research from the whole spectrum, from deep data-driven research to more public engagement, policy research, legal implications. So we're really going to be focused on the best science in that area as well. So that's what I'm all excited about for next year.
Wonderful. Well, we've got, a year now as we get this planning underway. Are there any deadlines that attendees need to know about, whether it's registering or getting their submissions in?
Yeah, so there are a couple important deadlines. So if you want to be involved in the scientific meeting, you want to direct the scientific content of the meeting, we have a deadline coming up in February for highlighted scientific sessions. So if you have a group of colleagues that are focused on a specific scientific theme that you would like as one of our highlighted sessions, please submit your application or your nomination form for that. That's in February.
Okay.
It's mid-February. And then if you want to present your own science as either a potential platform or poster presentation, that deadline will be in June. So start thinking now for what you want to present. This could be a trainee, it could be an undergraduate, a graduate student, a postdoc, a fellow, established investigator, early investigator. We want all of your science. We're really excited about it. So.
Wonderful. All right, and they can always, of course, stay on the website for the very latest updates.
Stay on the website. We are updating constantly. There will be email reminders. Make sure you're on the email list. If you're not a member or you need to renew your membership, please do that now so that you can actually get the information as it's sent out from the society.
Yes, get on it. Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much in advance for all of the planning that goes into this. And we hope to be back with you in Denver as well.
Indeed. Looking forward to it. Thank you, Andrea.
Well, that's a wrap for us, and we hope that you have enjoyed our show. Thank you once again for tuning in, and we will see you again next year in the mile-high city of Denver, Colorado. If you haven't had a chance to watch our entire show, don't worry. You can catch us on the televisions placed throughout the convention center, at our select partner hotels, on the ASHG website, on our YouTube and X pages, formerly known as Twitter. Take care.